here we are on one of 3 matches with them this season, as I alluded to earlier. Last time we played them in this tournament, we lost at home. However, we had played them quite a lot prior to that with 2, I believe, back-to-back semi-final appearances, and obviously the famous 5-1 victory that sent us to Wembley in 2008 rings very clear in the memories of Spurs fans, and would certainly like to do that now with no replay evident at this stage of the tournament. So get it done. Don't take it to extra time, please, and wear yourselves out for the City game, because that's an early Saturday kickoff. 12:45 kickoff for UK time. So, they always make me nervous. They're always very hard to call. We're a lot more competitive than 8-10 years ago against the Gooners. They will certainly be licking their wounds after what they will feel as an injustice, and maybe that's a great segue into what you were talking about earlier, Ken, with the referee decisions by Mike Dean in that match, with the behavior. I think we have to say the behavior of Diego Costa, because that guy is just turning into the pantomime villain of the Premier League, and I don't think anyone outside of Chelsea like him.
No, and I would almost imagine that there's probably some Chelsea fans that don't really appreciate his antics, just like there were Liverpool fans who didn't really appreciate Suarez's antics for as much as he scored. And that's exactly what this is. Aside from biting somebody, Costa's just he's just a little bitch. He really is. He's an instigator. He's a provoker. But he does it in such a way, and it seems like he has such an affinity with the referee as this game is going on, or whatever game is being played. And the little kick out by Gabriel was so slight. It happened, but it was so slight. There were challenges in that game that were 10 times rougher than that little kick out.
Well, I think we have to touch on his... Well, to put this in perspective, we need to talk about his challenge on Koscielny.
Yeah. Oh, my God.
I got to give credit to Koscielny for walking away from that. With one arm, he's grabbing him by his throat, and then with his trailing arm, he's whacking him in the face.
Yeah.
And he knows exactly what he's doing, even though he's not looking, because that's his MO. You only have to look back at that footage of him when he was playing at Atletico, and Fazio was at Sevilla, and it was the same thing. He was grabbing Fazio and whacking him. Fazio managed to just give him a nice old smack in the ribs, and he went down like a ton of potatoes.
Yeah.
But Koscielny, obviously, he knows what he's doing. He knows what Costa's doing, and he walked away. But I don't know in that match at what point that was occurring, and how far off the ball it was and what Dean was looking at, but that right there's a red card, if you ask me.
Does that beg the question then? In the World Cup, you have the referee who's on the pitch, and you have the 2 linesmen, but in the World Cup they also have end linesmen. Does it beg the question to the Premier League to maybe look at that option?
Remember that guy does that. They don't have flags.
Right.
They're there. I think they were there really to make those calls about whether the ball's over the line. Because I've never seen them waving their flags. They have something in their hand, but it's certainly not a flag.
Yeah, but does it need to be? Do you want one or even 2, one on each side of the net?
You're going back to video technology again. I don't want to open that can of worms today, but I think the point is, Gabriel, young, Costa knew he could probably goad him into pushing it.
Mm-hmm.
And let's face it, Costa would not leave it alone. And Gabriel should have just walked away, and one of his teammates really should have grabbed him and said, look, you got the yellow, you guys had your argy-bargy in the box, it's done and dusted, that guy will get his comeuppance. And that didn't happen, and but the cameras were focusing on the confrontation, the second confrontation. Nobody saw the kick out. We assumed he just was backing into him and he stepped on his foot. I think when they super zoomed it later on, you could see there was slight movement a la Beckham on Simeone, and that's what got the attention of the 4th official and alerted Dean, because obviously guess who was posturing? to the referee, did you see that? Did you see that?
Yeah.
It was Costa. And so he played the game fully, much to the vitriol of every Arsenal player and every Arsenal supporter. At the end of the day, Gabriel needs to know to walk away from those situations because he was goaded into doing what he did. So, a lot of people felt sorry for Arsenal. Most Spurs fans are probably not. I'm more annoyed and I guess angry that someone like Costa can get away with shit like that, and hopefully the league can retroactively look at this and suspend him for his earlier actions on Koscielny, because he is a nasty piece of work. I hate the guy.
Do you think there's any way that Gabriel's red card gets overturned?
No. If he kicked out, which it looks like he did, then it's a second yellow, and
that's true.
It's retaliation, and
he gave him a straight red. I don't think he gave him a second yellow. But either way, yes, he would have been sent off.
Yeah,
that does make sense.
And 2 yellows for Santi Cazorla, right?
Yep. Yeah. Double yellow, and he knew it. He knew it.
And so that means they're out for Wednesday.
And Cazorla obviously being the bigger name.
Yeah.
I don't like him, but listen, his creativity he's easily, aside from Sanchez, their best player.
Yeah. Well, and you could also tell that Cazorla was pissed off at Costa and their teammates for playing.
Oh, so. Yeah. And also, it begs the question, and something to be looked at by the FA, or at least by the league, is something that if you haven't seen the video yet, if I can find the link, I'll put it up on Twitter. I think BBC Sport was the one that put it up there, but Garth Crooks was given time to do a little bit of a commentary about his take on that whole situation. Both players being sent off, and how Mike Dean, as a referee, thinks that everybody in that stadium has paid good money to come watch him control a football game rather than watch 11 players play 11 players on the pitch with 2 of the most, powerful clubs in the league, let's face it. And it's a London derby, and he sends 2 players off. Cazorla, yes, he accumulated the cards, but it seemed like he absolutely lost control of the game, except for the fact that he decided to control the game in that manner. So it begs the question. I was watching Michael Oliver today. I don't know what everybody else got out of this match we just had with Palace. I thought he let the players play a little bit. There were some pretty rough challenges that just, nope, let's go. Arms are waved away, and we're going to keep playing. They're 2 big, physical, fast teams, and it was fun to watch that a little bit. And when things got a little out of hand, he addressed it. I thought Oliver actually had a pretty decent match today from a officiating standpoint.
Three yellow cards, I believe.
Yeah. And more could have easily been handed out with a different referee.
Yeah. There were some meaty challenges, and I didn't see the players complaining too much on either side when they were fouled.
Yeah.
I couldn't argue with either of them, because I think what he was allowing as an acceptable challenge, he allowed for both teams.
Yep.
Whereas I think we've seen some games this season, particularly when John Moss is refereeing, that is certainly not the case. So whatever standard Oliver chose to follow today, he applied it to both teams, and maybe that's the point that Crooks was making. Yeah, I haven't seen that.
It's the last. It kind of starts off as an explanation and what he feels things should be. The last 15 or 20 seconds, it is scathing, directly at Mike Dean, telling him that it is not his business to do what he is doing as an official. He's there to officiate the match to the best of his ability, not to control a football game. Right. And that's the difference, and trying to understand that. As we kind of shift gears here just a little bit, I want to. The League Cup match is Wednesday, 1:45 Central, 7:45 p.m. in the UK. So be looking for that. Any possible changes that you see coming, with having just played Palace at home? All these games are at home, so there's no travel involved, which is a bonus. I can almost see Poch putting out the exact same team, save Eriksson for Chadley.
For Wednesday?
Yeah.
I know I said we need to put out a strong team, but I think I'm a bit nervous. One, obviously, we want to put out a strong team for that game because of the importance of it to the fans.
Mm-hmm.
But I think we've also got to keep an eye on the fact that we're the early kickoff on Saturday, and we've got to put out as equally a strong a team to face City. So I think there will be a couple of changes.
Yeah.
We don't have a lot of options in that defensive midfield role, so you're probably going to see, if it's not Ali and Dyer, you might see Carroll and Dyer. I'm sure we're probably going to rest someone in the back four, whether that's Trippier and Rose coming on, or Fazio or Vimmer, a combination. I don't see the complete back four being swapped out, but some of those guys need some playing time, and some of our starters need a rest. Up top, it could be any combination of Eriksson and Chadley, Townsend, Lamela. I'm still not convinced that G has earned the starting spot yet.
Not for this.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking about it as you're talking. This match always, I don't know about the rest of you lot, I enjoy the kids and the guys that have been with this club a long time or came up through the academy getting their shot. That means, for me, Davis sit down, Rose is going to play. Lamela sit down, Townsend's going to play. Because they understand what it means. It doesn't matter if it's a league match, a cup tie, a preseason friendly, whatever it is. That's the old enemy. And you want to put the guys out there that understand how intense this is. I think there were some pictures flying around Twitter of a son holding up, a sign that said "thumbs up if you hate Arsenal," and he had his thumb up in the air. So he's becoming educated, and G will become educated, as will all the other players that we've recently purchased, and some of them that have grown up as English lads will know what that rivalry is, but they just haven't been a part of it yet. So I think it's important to put those players out there, to make them not only feel an integral part of what's going on with the League Cup, but to also let the fans know exactly why that's happening. And listen, we've all seen, and Danny Rose's greatest moment in this league will probably be his North London Derby debut goal against Arsenal, that absolute 35-yard screamer that he hit on the volley. And I know that resonates with him as a player. He's talked about it before. He loves a good North London derby, as does Townsend. And I wouldn't mind just seeing those players get out on the pitch. The ones that I'm really enamored with are the young kids. And you kind of liken back to the Costa discussion we just had. He's an absolute piece of trash when it comes to how he tries to intimidate during a game. But if you watch Ali and Dyer, Dembele to a point, Bentaleb and Mason, these guys, and even Rose, I've seen it happen with him. These guys know how to get into somebody's face and try to and almost get into their head a little bit to let them know, oh no, that is not going to happen again, or that is not going to happen at all. And if you want to get beyond me, you're going to have to go through me. And they do it in such a way that it's intimidating, but they don't come off like a jackass during the process of it happening. They just look like the tougher player on the pitch. You got thoughts on that? Is it just youth? Is it just 19 and 20-year-old kids? I mean, doing their thing?
Yeah, we certainly got a lot of them. And one of the things we talked about when Lyle was on was our lack of a veteran leader in the middle of the park to really, get the lads to pull their socks up, get their heads down, and get stuck in when we fall behind. And unfortunately, that hasn't happened a lot this season. But I think Dyer is rapidly turning into that player with youth on his side, and I think Vertonghen and Alderweireld, they're certainly not the youngest on the side, and they're hedging their way towards their late 20s. So, those will be the guys that are going to give us that balance that I think we need, and I think we can prevail. But again, I still get a little nervous because the youth and that youthful exuberance can let us down, as we saw with Gabriel, and hopefully that's something that is drilled into these guys, that you can't be that petulant and and we've got to taper that. We've got to be very careful, because that's the stuff that gets you into the ref's book, and we've seen it with Lamela at times, and